The police sirens echoed through the parking lot just as the little girl tightened her grip around her father's hand. Her eyes were full of fear, confusion, and tears. Around them, dozens of people stopped what they were doing to watch. A wealthy CEO stood near the entrance of a luxury office building, pointing angrily toward the exhausted man and his daughter. The officers stepped out of their patrol car and moved closer. What happened next would leave everyone speechless. Before we begin, if you believe kindness is more important than appearances and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs inspiration today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that touch the heart. The man standing in the parking lot was named Daniel Carter. To most people, he looked like someone life had completely defeated. His jeans were worn out. His shoes had holes in them. His old pickup truck looked like it could stop working at any moment. His face carried the exhaustion of countless sleepless nights, and his hands were rough from years of hard work. But what nobody saw was the battle he had been fighting every day. 3 years earlier, Daniel had lost his wife, Emily, to a sudden illness. One moment they were planning family vacations and dreaming about their daughter's future, and the next, he found himself standing alone beside a hospital bed, holding the hand of the woman he loved as she slipped away forever. The grief nearly destroyed him. Yet every morning, when he looked into the eyes of his 6-year-old daughter Lily, he found a reason to keep going. He worked multiple jobs. During the day, he repaired machinery at local farms. At night, he delivered food across town. Every dollar he earned went toward rent, food, school supplies, and keeping a roof over Lily's head. There were nights when he skipped dinner so she could have enough to eat. There were mornings when he hid his tears behind a smile so she would never know how worried he really was. Despite everything, Daniel taught Lily one important lesson: never judge people by what they have. Ironically, that lesson would soon be tested in the most painful way imaginable. On a cold Tuesday morning, Daniel drove Lily to a large corporate office building in downtown Chicago. He wasn't there looking for charity. He wasn't asking for help. He had received an invitation. Months earlier, Daniel had quietly submitted an application for a major innovation grant sponsored by one of the country's largest technology companies. Years before losing his wife, he had designed a revolutionary agricultural system that could help small farmers save water and increase crop production. The project had remained unfinished for years as he focused on survival and raising Lily. To his surprise, the company had selected him as one of the final candidates. That morning represented an opportunity that could change their lives forever. Daniel parked carefully and walked toward the building with Lily beside him. The skyscraper towered above them like a monument to wealth and success. As they approached the entrance, employees in expensive suits moved past them without making eye contact. Some stared. Others whispered. Daniel ignored it. He had grown used to being judged. What he didn't know was that one particular person had already decided exactly who he was. Standing inside the lobby was Victor Harrison, the company's CEO. Victor was known for building billion-dollar businesses and demanding perfection from everyone around him. Success had made him powerful, respected, and unfortunately, disconnected from ordinary people. When he noticed Daniel and Lily approaching the entrance, his expression hardened immediately. He saw old clothes. He saw an aging truck. He saw a tired single father. And he made assumptions. Victor convinced himself that Daniel didn't belong there. Without asking questions, without checking records, without showing basic human decency, he instructed security to remove the man and his daughter from the property. Security approached Daniel. Confused but calm, Daniel explained that he had an appointment regarding the innovation grant program. The guards looked uncertain. Their records indeed showed a scheduled meeting. But Victor wasn't satisfied. He insisted there had to be some mistake. The argument attracted attention. Employees gathered nearby. Lily held tightly onto her father's arm. Daniel remained respectful despite the humiliation. Then Victor made a decision that shocked even his own staff. He called the police. Minutes later, the patrol car arrived. The crowd grew larger. People pulled out their phones. The scene felt unbearable. Daniel's face turned pale as he realized everyone was watching. Not because he had done something wrong, but because someone powerful had decided he looked guilty. Lily began to cry quietly. For Daniel, that hurt more than anything else. He could handle embarrassment. He could handle rejection. But seeing fear in his daughter's eyes broke his heart. The officers approached and asked what was happening. Victor confidently explained that an unauthorized individual was causing problems at the building. One officer turned toward Daniel. Before he could answer, Lily suddenly spoke. Her small voice trembled as she looked up at the police. She explained that her father wasn't a bad person. She explained that he worked hard every day. She explained that he had brought her because he couldn't afford childcare. And then she said something that made the crowd fall silent. She said her father was her hero. For a moment, nobody moved. The officers exchanged glances. Even Victor seemed uncomfortable. Daniel knelt beside his daughter and wiped away her tears. The scene revealed something nobody had bothered to see before. This wasn't a troublemaker. This wasn't a threat. This was a father doing everything possible to give his child a better future. One officer asked Daniel for identification and any documents related to his appointment. Daniel handed over a worn folder. Inside were letters, application forms, engineering designs, and official invitations from the company itself. The officer reviewed the paperwork carefully. Then his expression changed. Very quickly. He looked back at Victor. Then at Daniel. Then back at the folder. The tension in the air became almost unbearable. Because hidden among the documents was information nobody expected. Years earlier, Daniel Carter had been one of the most respected engineers in the agricultural technology industry. Before tragedy struck his family, he had co-founded a startup that developed groundbreaking farming solutions. The company was eventually sold for millions. But Daniel had walked away from much of his success after dedicating his life to caring for his sick wife. Most importantly, the innovation grant program Victor's company was promoting had actually been inspired by one of Daniel's original research papers. The very program designed to discover innovators existed because of work Daniel had done years before. The officer quietly handed the documents to one of the executives who had come downstairs to observe the situation. Within minutes, whispers spread through the crowd. Faces changed. People who had ignored Daniel suddenly recognized his name. Several senior executives looked stunned. One executive rushed back inside. Moments later, she returned carrying additional files. The truth became impossible to ignore. Daniel wasn't merely a grant applicant. He was the reason several modern agricultural systems existed. His innovations had helped thousands of farmers across the country. His work had saved millions of gallons of water. Universities had studied his designs. Industry leaders had referenced his research. Yet after losing his wife, he had quietly disappeared from public life. He never sought recognition. He never chased headlines. He simply became a father trying to survive. The realization swept across the crowd like a wave. Silence filled the parking lot. The same people who had judged him minutes earlier now looked at him with entirely different eyes. But Daniel stood exactly the same. Nothing about him had changed. Only their perception had. Victor's face turned pale. For the first time that morning, he seemed unsure of himself. He finally understood what had happened. He had judged a man's worth based on his appearance. He had mistaken poverty for failure. He had confused humility with weakness. And now everyone knew it. The officers confirmed Daniel had every right to be there. The misunderstanding was over. But the emotional damage remained. Lily still clung to her father's hand. Daniel looked exhausted. Not angry. Not bitter. Just tired. Tired of being underestimated. Tired of being judged. Tired of living in a world where kindness often came second to appearances. Victor slowly approached him. The crowd watched. Nobody knew what would happen next. Daniel could have humiliated him. He could have demanded revenge. He could have exposed him publicly. Instead, he did something extraordinary. He simply smiled. It wasn't a smile of victory. It was a smile of understanding. Because Daniel knew something many successful people forget. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what happens afterward. Victor apologized publicly. Not because he was forced to. Because he genuinely understood the harm he had caused. His voice shook as he admitted his error in front of employees, executives, and police officers. Many people expected Daniel to reject the apology. Instead, he accepted it. The crowd seemed stunned. But forgiveness has a power that pride never will. Over the following months, Daniel's innovation project received funding. His agricultural system transformed struggling farms across several states. Thousands of families benefited from his work. His company grew rapidly. Jobs were created. Communities improved. And most importantly, Daniel finally achieved the stability he had always wanted for Lily. Yet success never changed him. He still volunteered at local shelters. He still helped struggling parents. He still remembered the difficult years when every dollar mattered. 1 year later, Daniel was invited back to the same building where he had once been humiliated. This time, he was the keynote speaker at the company's annual leadership conference. Hundreds of executives filled the auditorium. Victor sat in the front row. When Daniel stepped onto the stage, the audience rose to their feet. The standing ovation lasted several minutes. Then Daniel shared a message nobody forgot. He spoke about loss. He spoke about resilience. He spoke about his daughter. And he spoke about the danger of judging people without knowing their stories. He reminded everyone that some of the strongest people carry the heaviest burdens silently. Some of the kindest people have suffered the deepest pain. And some of the most valuable people in the world may look completely ordinary. As he finished speaking, Lily walked onto the stage. Now older and smiling brightly, she wrapped her arms around her father. The audience wiped away tears. Because in that moment, everyone understood what true success looked like. It wasn't money. It wasn't power. It wasn't status. It was love. It was character. It was the courage to keep going when life gives you every reason to quit. Before we reach the end of this story, I have a special request. Please comment below with the words, "Kindness sees beyond appearances," if you believe people should never be judged by how they look. Years later, many people forgot the details of the incident in the parking lot. But they never forgot the lesson. The CEO who judged a struggling father learned humility. The crowd that rushed to conclusions learned compassion. And a little girl learned that her hero truly was the strongest man she would ever know. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue bringing meaningful stories that inspire hope, kindness, and faith in humanity. Because sometimes the most powerful people are not the ones standing in the tallest buildings. Sometimes they are the exhausted single parents quietly sacrificing everything for the people they love. And sometimes, when the world finally sees their true worth, the room doesn't fill with noise. It falls completely silent.